In this video, we're going to talk about Reef Aquarium water parameters. Hey everyone, it's Carlin Haywood from Rasta Reefs. If you're new to the channel, I started this channel to serve as a guide for current and future hobbyists to really avoid some of the failures that you can experience in the saltwater aquarium hobby. So each week I share content that helps step you through the process of maintaining a thriving reef tank that you can truly appreciate. And so I hold monthly Reef Club meetings, and this past month we had a Reef Club meeting around water parameters that was presented by Danny Nguyen at Kung Fu Coral. So I wanted to share that footage with you guys and hope you enjoy it.
If you guys have been in the hobby for a while, like what's the number one parameter that people tell you is the most important to watch out for? It's usually alkalinity, right? So I'm gonna kind of like go against that. Alkalinity is very important, but I don't think it's actually the number one parameter you should worry about. Okay, so let me see if I can switch my camera. This is like lined up in order of importance. When I check my parameters, we got magnesium first. We got alkalinity, calcium, nitrate, and then phosphate. Those are I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So those are actually the most important parameters. So why magnesium first? Well, magnesium controls the level of your calcium and alkalinity. So, and that's my kid's drawing. Ignore that. Okay, so if you look at a scale like this, right? Right here you have alk on one side, and then you have calcium on the other side, and then the vertical scale up and down, that's your magnesium. Okay, so if let's say your alk is low at 7.0, your calcium is probably going to be pretty high, maybe 480, 500, maybe even above that. And your mag will control what level you can keep. So if you look at this teeter-totter here, if you bring your alk up, your mag is going to drop. They have to be balanced. Okay. Now, if your calcium goes up, then your alkalinity is going to drop. So for people that want to keep a parameter that's higher or lower, then what you need to do is get mag to change that. So what mag is going to do is, if you get your mag to go up, it's going to bring this whole scale upward as well. That means now you can get an alk 8.0, and in addition to that, you can get calcium at 480 if you wanted to. Okay, so that's why I say mag is kind of like the first thing you want to fix, and then you can fix your alk and then your calcium. Okay, let's take an example here. Let's say you have your mag running at, it's low at 1220. Okay, and then your alk, let's say it's also low at 7.0 because you haven't been doing a water change. Then your calcium is at 480 or something, because these two needs to be balanced. Now, people tell you to fix alk first. You're going to fix that, and you're going to make that 8.0, right? And then your calcium is not going to drop. But then, okay, your mag's low. People say, okay, let's raise up to 1350. Okay. As soon as you raise 1350 up, and then your alk is at 8.0, now all of a sudden, your alk can be higher because your calcium's higher. So this is also going to jump up just by putting mag in.
So for the people that don't I guess maybe don't know how quickly they can raise their alk or calcium or magnesium, kind of give an idea of like, what do you think is a safe range or safe kind of steps to take when you're raising your alkalinity, magnesium, and calcium.
Okay, I'm going to go through that a little bit later as well. But
Okay.
to answer that question right now, a lot of people say if you're going to raise your alk, then you want to do that 1 DKH a day. Okay, that's safe. That's okay. Now, if your alk lowers, if you want to lower your alk, just lower it. I mean, I've lowered alk by 2 DKH a day, and things are safe. Okay, it's the alk spike that kills you. So if your alk goes along and there's a big spike and it stays up here, this is what kills your coral. This bridge. But if you go along and then you have an alk drop, this right here is less likely to kill your coral. So you can drop lower and be okay. But when you're raising your alk, you gotta go very, very slow. I would say 1 DKH a day is safe, but you don't want to chance anything. So I would say half a DKH a day would be ideal.
And how do you drop your alk? Are you doing water changes, or are you just letting the corals consume it? How do you drop your alk?
I drop my alk by just turning off my doser. Okay. And turn off my calcium reactor. Yeah, we're going to go through that as well on how I actually do it on some of my system.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Okay, so let's get back to that. So number 1, fix your mag. Okay, make that correct. Now the next question is, what level should you run your mag at? I would say anywhere from 1300. I've seen people run up to 16, but I would say 13 to 1400. If you're within this range, you're pretty safe. Does it matter what range you run at? No, not really. I've seen people with success running 1400, 1300, even 1250. As long as you're getting the right corals for it, you should be fine. Okay, next level. Once you fix your mag, remember that teeter-totter we talked about? That is now balanced. So you have alk here on one side and then calcium on the other side. Next thing to do is balance your alk. If it's low, bring it up slightly. Okay. If it's high, bring it down slightly. Okay. Once that's balanced, now we work on calcium. Now, the tough part now is, let's say you get your mag correct, then you get your alk correct. Now, as soon as you change your calcium, like you go up or down on the calcium, because it's connected to this alk, it's going to teeter. It's going to go like this. It's going to go up and down. Okay. So you raise your calcium, your alk is going to go down. You lower your calcium, your alk is going to go up. So as you're doing these two, this is like a juggling act. You got to do it slowly. You got to do alk a little bit, then check your, you got to do your calcium a little bit, then check your alk. Make sure it's not dropping. Okay. So remember, there's always an inverse relationship between alk and calcium. So inverse just means one go up, the other one must go down. Okay. Okay. So that's pretty standard. I mean, a lot of it will work, but now these two, nobody tests, or very few people test. And these two are, so these three right here, these tests right here are great for getting your, getting your corals not to die. Okay, magnesium, calcium. So these will kill your coral if they're off. Now, if you want your coral to thrive, which means they're healthy, they're puffy, you gotta use these two tests, and they're just as important. Okay. So we talk about nitrate. A lot of people, when they traditionally, the reefing people, like 15 years ago when we were doing reefing, everyone thought 0 nitrate. NO3, 0 phosphate. What is that? PO4, I believe.
Yeah, PO4, yeah.
Okay. So everyone's like 0. And that's because we came from a fish system. 15 years ago, if you're able to keep sun corals, you're like, that was the bomb. Leather corals, that was the bomb. You know, that's not a lot of people that were able to keep really colorful SPS, LPS and stuff. We get clams and mushrooms all the time. Okay. And the reason for that is everyone kept nitrate and phosphate at 0 because it's healthy for the fish. Unfortunately, that's not very healthy for the coral. So again, 0 is bad. 0 is bad. So what level should you keep your nitrate at? Depends on what you're keeping. On my SPS tank, I try to keep 5 ppm. Okay. On my mixed reef, I'm gonna do that as I'm gonna say mostly my mixed reef, mostly LPS. I'm gonna say 10 to 20 ppm. Okay. And then for phosphate, 0.05 to 0.10. Same thing on this one, 0.05. Not working. 5 to 0.10. On this side, it's a little bit more forgiving. Okay, you have high phosphate, you'll get like algae, you'll get brown algae, hair algae, you'll get that. On this side, your phosphate gets too high or your nitrate gets too high. On the SPS side, you'll start getting green SPS or brown SPS. There's too much nutrient in the system. Okay, so why high phosphate? Why phosphate is not 0? Why nitrate is not 0? Well, there are zooxanthellae inside all the corals, and they're basically algae, and they need nutrient to survive. They need light to survive, and too much light, too much nutrient will get everything brown. Not enough, and what's going to happen is the coral is going to dissipate all these zooxanthellae, and you'll start getting bleaching. It will die and stuff. Okay, so so that's my parameters right there. Okay, so let's talk about magnesium. How do you fix magnesium? Well, that's pretty simple. Any type of magnesium solution will work. If it's too high, do a water change, right? If it's high is not so bad. For me, high would be like 1500. That would be high. Low to me would be 1250. I want to keep somewhere in between here. If it's high, I just leave it. Your coral will start using magnesium and it will lower itself. If it's too low, then just raise it up with a magnesium solution. Okay, so that's pretty easy.
What type do you use?
I just use the BRS magnesium mix. Pretty any magnesium will do. Magnesium is magnesium everywhere.
Okay.
Now 2, alkalinity. This is going to be the tough one. Okay, so alkalinity, you got doser, right? You got calcium reactor, and then you have Kaltweiser. Okay. My preference for changing alk would be this. Why a doser? Because you're only going to put in the bicarbonate or the alkalinity you need to raise it. Okay, we're talking about raising alk right now. You're only going to put in, you can either manual dose or you can do automatic dose. I recommend when you're doing an adjustment, do manual. Always. Okay, do not set your dose up higher and let your alk run away with you. If you're going to adjust your alk up higher, always do manual. Measure what you need and then take half of that and then dose it over a few hours. Always manual. I've made a mistake where I set my dose to automatic, got distracted about something, and then my alk spiked up, killed a bunch of stuff. Okay, so adjustment should be manual. Okay, so again, any type of adjustment, do it manual. Now, to maintain your alk, you could use a doser. You can use a calcium reactor, or you can use Cutweiser. Okay, now, when you're using a calcium reactor, you're not only dosing alk, but now you're also dumping in calcium, magnesium, and all type of trace element that it's not measurable. You don't know how much you're putting in. Okay, so I like the doser. Calcium works great, and I'll show you how I use it. Cutweiser, when you're dumping in Cutweiser, that's going to dump in alk, but then it's also going to dump in calcium. So if you're trying to adjust alk, that's also a bad idea to increase your Cutweiser, because now you're changing 2 parameters. Okay. So if you want to change 1 parameters, this is what you want to go for. You want to dose it manually. Okay. That's going to change your alk. Now calcium is going to be the same way. When you're adjusting calcium, you also have the doser, the calcium reactor, and then you have the cup. And you can use this. It's going to be the same diagram. If you're going to change calcium up and down, always do the dose, okay? And then also always manual. Always manually adjust. Measure what you need and put it in, okay? So, okay, so that's how we change stuff. Okay, so what I use in my system. So I have my parameter, my alk, I'm keeping at 8.0 to 8.2. My calcium, 430 to 480. Magnesium, I keep mine at 1350 to 1400. If it drops, I'll fix it. Not that important for coral, but I fixed that before I fix my other stuff. Nitrate, we got 5 ppm for SPS, 10 to 20 ppm for LPS, and then PO4, 0.05 to 0.10. Okay, this is generally pretty good for everyone. Okay, the other thing I want to address is like when we're talking about parameters for saltwater fish or freshwater fish. I'm going to go back to my experience raising fish. When you're doing fish, you go, what's the pH, right? So high pH, like 8.4, and that's for like South American fish or African cichlids, okay? And then if a pH low, 6.5, this is for Central American cichlids, and then like discus and betta fishes and stuff like that. So notice that in the freshwater world, we use pH to see, okay, what's the right parameter for the fish, okay? When you're doing corals, we don't talk about that. What's your parameters you should keep at? That's everyone will talk about. But then the question should be, what type of coral are you going to keep? So we got Indo, right? We got Aussie. There's Vietnam corals. There's stuff from Tonga. And then a slew of other places, Philippines. There's all these places. And all the parameters are different in all these oceans, right? So no one talks about that. So I want to address today Aussie, because I think all these other ones, you can keep the same parameters and they'll be okay. But Aussie, you guys ever have an Aussie Gold Torch?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay. Yeah, you had one. It probably died.
No, it's still going. It's not as gold as it used to be. It kind of is like has some like, it's still pretty gold, but it has like some purplish tint to it now. But
Yeah,
it's still alive.
yeah. A lot of people, if you Google Aussie gold torches, you'll see a lot of people die. If you Google Indo torches, you usually see hobbyists with like huge colonies, like 15 heads, 10 head. You can't find huge Aussie colonies in a lot of tanks in the hobbyists. And that's the reason is it dies. So why does it die? It's not because your parameter is unstable in your tank, but this is one reason I will never sell Aussie gold again until it figures out. Why is that? Because when you bring in Aussie gold, this is your out. When you bring in Aussie gold directly and you test the water, the alk on Aussie gold is 11 to 12 DKH. So people who have success with Aussie stuff, they usually keep a higher pH. They also keep dirtier water. So phosphate higher, nitrate higher, and alkaline higher. If we went back to my parameters where my alk is at 8, it's gonna survive for like maybe 3 months. It's probably gonna recede or lose color, and it's because we're not giving it the parameters we want. So if we went back, so this is what I keep in my parameter because of the choices of corals I have. I mostly keep Indo corals, so this is a good parameters for me. Okay, so what is the best parameter for you? Well, you gotta determine what type of corals you want to do, and then change that. Okay, I'm gonna talk about one more thing. So in my system, I have a calcium reactor, right? I also have a dose, which is the Neptune dose, and that does alkalinity. That also does calcium. Okay. I also have Cutweiser. So this is how I control my. So let's say I have. This is the level I want to keep. Okay. This is all my mag, my calcium, my alk. So up here it would be like my ideal level. That's what I want to keep. I want to be up here. So with the calcium reactor, I set my calcium reactor to be just right there. So it's gonna dose all this for me. It's just gonna hit right below what I need. So what's gonna happen with this top part right here? So these peaks here represents kind of like calcium, alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, and they're gonna fluctuate, okay? So that's where this comes in. That's gonna adjust, that's gonna fine tune my stuff up here. And then the Cutweiser helps at night, and that's gonna raise my pH. That's gonna raise my pH, okay? So a lot of people say, well, if you have a calcium reactor, you don't need to dose anymore. You can take that out. And I'm gonna tell you why I disagree with that. So we talked about calcium reactor and what that gives into your system. It gives alk. We got calcium and we get mag. Okay. Now it's gonna dose a certain amount, 30 ml a minute. Okay. Now out of that 30 ml, how much is it is calcium? How much of it is magnesium? And then how much of that is alk? You really don't know. Okay. And a lot of people will say, oh, it doesn't matter because your coral consume things in the same amount, but that's actually wrong. There's coralline algae that would take out a lot of the calcium and leave your magnesium or the alkalinity will precipitate out. Okay, so that's why I have a calcium reactor. And then that's also why I also dose. Okay. So, do you guys have any question on it so far? Okay. Now I'll just move on. We can save questions for later, or you can email me on Instagram. Okay.
If anyone has
Okay.
any questions, feel free to like use the hand function that's on the side of Zoom, and then we can stop and ask any questions. But go ahead, Danny, if you want to just repeat that real quick, I'd appreciate
Okay.
it.
Okay. No problem. So a lot of people have very low nitrate. Okay. So what happens when you have low nitrate is your coral is not feeding. Let's say your nitrate's at 0. Your coral is not feeding. It's not going to grow. It's going to start receding. One way that if you have any LPS, like a chalice, a blasto, acan, or a canto, scully, any type of meat coral, anything with flesh, you'll see that with low nitrate, everything's going to be like colored up maybe, but they're not puffy. It should look like a marshmallow, like super puffy. Okay. So if you have low nitrate, what people do is they're like, oh, just feed more fish food. That's going to increase your nitrate. Okay. But if you feed fish food, if you feed more, yeah, that's going to increase your nitrate, but it's also going to increase other things like phosphate. And you want to keep nitrate high and phosphate low. So this is what I use. You guys don't go out and buy it unless you message me, and I'll give you the formula and what to look for and how to do it properly. But this is what I use. It's just sodium nitrate. Okay. There's another powder here called potassium nitrate. It's basically the same thing. Sodium nitrate, the byproduct is sodium, which is salt. And then with potassium nitrate, the byproduct is potassium, which is a trace element you need. I use sodium because I already dose trace elements as well. Okay. So this whole bag, I think on Amazon is like $15. It will last you forever. So if you have a friend, just share it. So this is how you dose nitrate on this. Just mix it with RODI water and slowly increase that. Okay. So that's, if your nitrate's low, you dose sodium nitrate. Sodium nitrate. So that's one issue. Okay. Now, if your nitrate is too high, so if your problem is you have algae, nitrate is too high. Okay, so what you can do here, there's a lot of things you can do. If you're over 21, dose vodka. Go buy some vodka, dose a few mil. And what this is doing is essentially, you're doing something called carbon dosing. Vodka is essentially carbohydrate. That's why you drink too much and you feel bloated and stuff like that. But it's basically just energy, it's just sugar. That sugar is going to feed the bacteria in your system, and the bacteria will start consuming phosphate and nitrate. So if your nitrate is too high, you can dose vodka, and that could be a regular regimen. Use non-flavor vodka, just a cheap one from the grocery store, and that works really well. Okay. Other thing you can do, you can up your skimmer. Okay, so that will take out detritus from your system, which prevent it from breaking down, and that will help get your nitrate as low as well. You can also do commercial product like MB7, which is bacteria. So I'm gonna write MB7, the Mycobacter 7 from Brightwell, or you can use Dr. Tim's Refresh, stuff like that. Anything to add bacteria in your system. So the idea is to have bacteria break down and now lower your nitrate. Okay, so high nitrate, you start doing one of their stuff. You can also increase your skimmer. I mean, you can also add a refugium, add your light, anything that will consume nitrate, or you can add more corals. Okay, so that's nitrate. Then we got PO4. Okay, PO4, if it's too low, there's commercial product out there, you can dose phosphate, but do it very slow. A phosphate swing could kill your stuff. Okay, now if your phosphate is too high, okay, what you can do is run Rorophos, okay, to get back down. Be careful. Rorophos will strip your phosphate really, really fast, and it'll clump up, it'll clog up, and then it won't work anymore. So when I used Rorophos before, it worked great for 3 days. Phosphate went down quickly, too quickly, and then it stopped going down and started going back, and then I had to change Rorophos. So that got super expensive for me, and I didn't like the way it worked because it wasn't consistent. Okay. Other thing you can do is add. So we talk about dosing bacteria, vodka dosing as well. Okay, so what I do is I use lanthanum chloride. Lanthanum. I use is that how you spell it? Forgive the spelling. I use lanthanum chloride. Okay, I use this thing right here. Again, please don't go out and buy this stuff until you message me, and I will spend the time to help you. But I don't want you to kill your tank. So don't do that until you message me. So why lanthanum?
That, Danny, how does water changes come into this? Are you going to touch on that as well, or?
Yeah, water change will bring down parameters as well. So we'll talk about water changes as well. Water change is kind of like if you don't know what's going on, you don't know what to do, just do your water change. Okay. So why I do this is because my system is very big. A 200-gallon water change costs a lot of money. Like the salt, the water, a 200-gallon water change costs a lot. So I do as much as I can to control my parameters, and then I still do my water change. But keeping my parameter in check help reduce doing water change. So I don't have to do a water change every week or every 2 weeks. I can get away with like maybe 3 or 4 weeks without doing a water change. Okay. Now lanthanum chloride, this is very dangerous stuff. So what happened is when you put lanthanum chloride in a tank that has phosphate in it, it immediately binds to it and becomes a solid. So when I use lanthanum chloride, I have this is my skimmer. So I'll drip lanthanum chloride into this section right here where the bubble is. And this is my skimmer cup up there. The bubble will take that solid and waste it out. So it will never go into my system if I'm doing it properly. What this is, the nice thing about this is super cheap. This bottle is, again, $15. I'll probably never use it up. And it's super effective if done properly. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about water changes. Okay, why is water changes good and bad? Okay, water changes resets your tank. Okay, so when your parameter is too high, do a water change, get it lower, and then start doing your manual dose to bring your levels back up. Okay, so why is a water change? So water change are actually good in that aspect because it will help you fix things. It will take out chemicals from your system. Any type of like toxin it could remove. Okay, so in order to do water changes, when you do a water change, you shock your system. Okay, so let's talk about my parameters as well. So why do I choose this parameter to run my system at? Well, it's because TPM, Tropic Man Pro, that's the salt I use. So with the salt I use, the parameters lower than what I run it. Okay, so again, we talk about a drop in DKH like one DKH drop, it's not going to kill your coral. Dropping calcium, it's not going to kill your coral. Dropping mag, it's not going to kill your coral. Dropping nitrate and phosphate, it's not going to kill your coral unless you stay at 0 for a while. So the reason I use this salt right here is because this is the parameter that I felt like my coral does the best. And so I could do a massive water change. I can do a 200-gallon water change in my system. That's about a little bit less than half on my mixed reef system, and that'll change my alk to 7.5 to 7.8. Okay, no problem. Not a big alk swing. That will also reduce my calcium to maybe 430, and then that will reduce my mag down to if it's at 14, it'll go down about 50 mag, and that'll reduce my nitrate and phosphate by a little bit less than half, because I'm doing about half my water change. Okay, so water change is good because for me it lowers everything, but then my doser will bring it back up. Okay, now water change is bad. Let's say if I use Red Sea Pro. Okay, Red Sea Pro mixes at a very high alk, 11 DKH. So when I do a water change, I'm raising all my level. So if I'm using Red Sea Pro and I keep this alk like pretty standard level here, I can't do a big water change. So I can only do small water changes, and small water change doesn't really take away toxin in your system, doesn't really lower nitrate that quickly, because the fish will poop every single day. You got stuff that's breaking down every day. So small water change won't help your nitrate. Okay, so my recommendation is like find the parameters you want to keep for your system, for the coral you want to keep, and then find a salt. Okay, Tropic Marine Pro, Red Sea, Indian Ocean, whatever salt you use, try to get a salt that is closest to the parameters you want to run. And if anything, a little bit lower than the parameters you want to run, because it's easier to adjust up by adding stuff than it is to take away stuff. Okay, so I want to focus on these last two things. My last comment is a lot of people have alk, mag, and calcium pretty much handle. Everyone talks about that. Everyone's like, oh, it's important, let's handle that. But if you guys can, look at your tank, get a kit, check your nitrate, check your phosphate. Okay, if it's registering 0, you're going to be in for a huge surprise. As soon as you get like sodium nitrate right here, and you bump your nitrate up to kind of like 5 ppm like here, and then phosphate, drop your phosphate low, you're going to see I would say in about 2 or 3 days, you're going to see all your corals like looking better than they've ever been if you're running low nutrient system. Okay, all right, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about with water parameters. Oh, one more last thing is, when we talk about systems, okay, when I talk about my system, I'm going to do my system. When I'm talking about my system, it might not necessarily, what I do might not necessarily work for what you do, because my system is 400 gallons on one, and then about 250 gallons on another one. And then my display is about 600 gallon. So when I'm talking about my system, how I do things, I'm talking about systems that are large volume of water. So my strategy might be different than yours. Like that's why I use lanthanum chloride. I dose stuff, and I do less water changes. Okay. Now let's talk about other system like nanos. To me, a nano is probably anything less than 60 gallon would be a nano. Okay, even if you have a sump, it'd be a nano because it's easy to fix with water changes. So this should be your go-to strategy. If you have a 60 gallon or less, something goes wrong, do a water change, fix everything. Okay, do regular water change, and your promise will be straight. Now, when you get up to about 100 gallon to 240 gallon, now water changes get expensive, right? So I would say right here you could do partial water change, but also think about adding like phosphate remover, adding sodium to your system in terms of dosing vodka and stuff. So right here, this will save you a little bit more money. It's a little bit more work because a water change really shouldn't take that long to do and fix everything. This is a little bit more work. Okay, and then obviously anything above the 240 gallon range, you're going to be using a strategy like what I have, where I'll do my regular water change, but I want to fix my parameters with these things as much as possible. Okay. So again, most people will do nano, do a water change, and then manually adjust up your parameters. All right, I think that's what I have to talk about. If someone have any questions, comments, we can talk about, or like if you don't agree, that's good too. That'll be a good conversation to have as well. I'll turn it back over to Colin to run the meeting.
Appreciate it, Danny. Thank you so much, man. That was awesome, dude. There's a lot in there that that I didn't know as well. So like in terms of like the phosphates and nitrates, you know, I test those, but my nitrates have always been notoriously low, and so I'm starting to try the Brightwell nitrates supplement to try to like raise that up. But if anyone has any questions, use the hand function. And then I'll go ahead and pick on you guys, and you can ask any questions or make any comments that you want to make. But we do have the coral to give away, and I know some of you guys have a hard stop at 6 p.m. So we got about let's do about 4 or 5 minutes or so, and then we can kind of go from there. I'll let David ask a question here.
First of all, thanks for giving us the talk on water parameters. We barely went over pH. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, should we try to keep that up, or is that kind of like last on the list in regards to water parameters?
I wouldn't say. I would say if you've gone like everything else down, then start doing pH. If you're running your pH too low, like I ran my pH at 7.9 to 8.2. It swings every day depending on how much your coral feed or breathe or stuff like that. Oxygen level. I open up my garage or a window, and my pH will go up, right? So I think pH is actually really important if you start thinking about coral growth, not just maintaining coral, but if you want it to thrive, grow, you gotta bring your pH up. It's very simple to bring your pH up. Just run the best thing is like a $10 fix. Run your skimmer hose outside. Your skimmer airline hose, run it outside. It's going to pull in fresh oxygen all the time. It also raise your pH. It also make it stable. That's probably the more important thing, is to make it stable. And then lastly, you can add Cutweiser as a second top off, not in your ATO, but as a second, like a dosing on that. And when I did that, my pH went from 7.9 to like now it's like 8.2 to 8.5. And on my SPS tank, makes a huge difference. Everything's just happier. So yeah, pH is definitely very important to chase the number as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I also had a secondary question. We didn't go over tank temperatures. I know that people say 78, but I've seen people run it at different levels, or like, you know, closer to 80. What are your thoughts on that?
I would never run my tank at 80. I think 80 is kind of like at the high point for me. and then 76 is the low point. So I run mine at 77, 78, because if something goes out, like your heater goes bad, you're not doing such a big swing. Why people run at 80? I think it raises the metabolism of your coral, and maybe you can get a little bit more growth out of it. But to me, it's a little bit risky. You know, a hot summer day, if you're running at 80 already, your tank could shoot up to like 83, and that's a good way to kill corals. I mean, if you think about ocean waters, it's never 80 something degree unless the reef is dying, right? It's usually 78. So I would stick with 77, 78, 79 even.
Perfect. Makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, any more questions? We've got about a couple more minutes here. If not, then we could just jump straight into the raffle and call it for today. Okay, I don't see any more. So what I'm going to do is I'll share my screen here. So right now I have 7 of you guys. I have Andrea, Boss, I have David T, David P, Patty, Ty's Tanks, and also Dominic. So again, this is for the Jason Fox Top Fuel Fabia. And so we'll go ahead and raffle for that now then. All right, so congratulations, Ty. So just get a hold of me and Danny at the end of the meeting, either email or preferably IG. But just shoot us your info, and then we can go ahead and get that out to you. And Danny will communicate to you, you know, time frame and tracking number and all that kind of good stuff. So, Danny, have anything else you want to add before we call it for today?
No, thanks for letting me talk about stuff, you guys. And again, like, all the information I give you is from experience that I have had personally. So take advice from people that have working tanks. So if you are already having a good working tank and someone helped you with it, keep with that advice. You know, just only listen to people that have proven tanks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
then you'll be good, because I'm not my parameters, my way is not the only way to make things work.
But I think, you know, like, even though that there may be different methodologies out there, but I think one thing that I think Danny would probably agree with is just that consistency and stability. And so, you know, once you have your system up and running, things are happy. Just try to maintain those levels and be consistent and diligent with your tests, you know, so you don't have these swings up and down. So thanks again, Danny. I'll look out for the next meeting for next month. I'll post that. It'll probably be the 4th Thursday of the month. So thank you guys for attending. I really do appreciate it. And you know, keep tagging us in your posts. We want to see how corals are looking and how tanks are coming along. And if you ever have any questions, you know, feel free to reach out to me or Danny.
Yeah, and if you guys need help with your tank, don't hesitate to, like, just message me. I don't mind helping at all. Okay, I think I've saved a couple of tanks by now. So yeah, just message me. The goal is to get you enjoying the hobby and not just kind of like listening to local fish store and listening to bad advice. Listen to the advice and always check with someone that has a working system. Like, check with Colin. He works on tanks every single day, man. So he knows how to run a tank. And check with Ty. Ty has an amazing tank too. You know, check with people that works. We love helping new hobbyists. So
Absolutely. You know, a good community.
yeah, that's right, you guys.
So
Hey, thanks for holding this,
everyone.
Colin. Really good job, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny. Really appreciate your time. All right, everyone. Have a good night.
If you've enjoyed that video, consider hitting the like button to help support the page. And if you'd like to be notified every time I upload new content, hit the bell notification and subscribe button as well. And as always, keep doing your research. The legend Bob Marley says, "It is better to know than to believe." See you all next time.